Gabriel was walking home in the night. The moon was big in the sky. The wind was blowing. The trees were moving. Everywhere was quiet. Gabriel was happy because he drank palm wine with his friends. He laughed and kicked a stone on the road. Please subscribe to this YouTube channel. Suddenly, he wanted to urinate. He looked around. He saw an old grave by the side of the road. The grave was dirty, with dry leaves on top. Gabriel laughed. "This is just a grave. I don't care," he said. He walked to the grave, opened his trousers, and urinated on it. The wind stopped. The trees stopped moving. Everywhere became quiet. The air became cold. But Gabriel did not care. He finished urinating, closed his trousers, and laughed. "Stupid dead man," he said. Then he heard it. A voice. It called his name. "Gabriel." Gabriel stopped. His heart started beating fast. He turned around. Nobody was there. The grave was still there. The night was still dark. He shook his head and started walking fast. But something was wrong. The air felt heavy. The road looked long. His footsteps made loud sounds, like someone was walking with him. He looked back again. Nothing. He laughed. "Maybe I drank too much," he said. But inside his heart, he was afraid. Then, as he took another step, he felt something. A sharp pain between his legs. His manhood was gone. Gabriel screamed. He touched between his legs, but there was nothing there. His manhood was gone. Sweat covered his face. His heart was beating very fast. He fell to the ground, shaking. "No! No! This is not real," he shouted. He touched again, but it was the same. Nothing. Tears filled his eyes. His body felt cold. His legs were weak. Then he heard the voice again. "Gabriel." It was coming from the grave. The voice was deep. It sounded like many voices speaking at the same time. Gabriel tried to run, but his legs did not move. It was like something was holding him down. The wind blew again. It was very cold. It felt like ice on his skin. Then, something moved inside the grave. Gabriel's eyes opened wide. His mouth shook. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The grave started to open. The sand moved by itself. Something was coming out. A dark hand came out first. Then another. Gabriel wanted to run. He wanted to scream. But he was too afraid. His body did not listen to him. Then he saw it. A dead body was coming out of the grave. The body had no eyes. Its mouth was open, full of black teeth. It was wearing old, dirty clothes. Worms were moving on its skin. It looked at Gabriel, even though it had no eyes. Then it smiled. Gabriel finally found his voice. He screamed and ran. He did not care where he was going. He just wanted to get away. His heart was beating fast. His legs were moving very quickly. But something was wrong. The road looked different. The trees looked taller. The moon looked red. The village was far. No matter how fast he ran, he could not reach home. Then he heard it. Footsteps. The dead body was following him. "Gabriel," the voice called again. It was closer now. Gabriel ran faster. His legs were tired, but he did not stop. He saw a small house by the side of the road. It was an old hunter's hut. He ran inside and closed the door. His hands were shaking. His breath was fast. Inside the hut, it was dark. The air smelled bad, like rotten food. Gabriel stood in the corner, covering his mouth so he would not make a sound. Outside, the footsteps stopped. Gabriel listened. His heart was loud in his chest. He prayed the thing had gone away. Then, suddenly, bang! The door shook. Gabriel jumped. He held his breath. Bang! The door shook again. Gabriel started crying. "Please, leave me alone," he whispered. Then, the voice spoke again. "Gabriel, you urinated on my grave." Gabriel shook his head. "I am sorry. Please, forgive me." Silence. Then, very slowly, the door started to open. The door opened slowly. It made a long creaking sound. Gabriel pressed himself against the wall. His body was shaking. His hands were cold. He wanted to scream, but no sound came out. The dead body stood at the door. It was tall, very tall. Its head almost touched the roof. Its skin was dry and black, with deep cracks all over. Maggots crawled out of its nose and mouth. Its empty eye sockets faced Gabriel. Then, he took a step inside. Creak! The wooden floor made a noise under its feet. Gabriel could not breathe. His whole body was frozen. The thing raised its hand and pointed at him. Its fingers were long, with sharp, black nails. "Gabriel," the voice was deep, like thunder. "You disrespected the dead. You must pay." Gabriel fell to his knees. "Please. Please. I did not know. Forgive me." Tears rolled down his face. His whole body was shaking. The thing took another step. It was now inside the hut. The smell of rot filled the air. Gabriel covered his nose, but the smell was too strong. "You laughed at my grave," the voice said. "Now you will cry forever." Gabriel crawled backward. His back hit the wall. There was nowhere to run. Then, the dead body opened its mouth wide, too wide, like a black hole. From inside its mouth, Gabriel heard screams. Loud, painful screams. Voices of many people crying in pain. Gabriel covered his ears, but he could still hear them. The voices were inside his head. They were calling his name. "Gabriel. Gabriel. Gabriel." His vision became blurry. His body felt weak. His head was spinning. Then, suddenly, the lights went out. Everything became dark. Gabriel could not see anything. Everything was black. The air was heavy, like something was pressing on his chest. His heart was beating fast. His hands searched the floor, but he could not feel anything. Then, he heard breathing. Slow, deep breathing. It was close. Too close. Gabriel held his breath. He did not move. He did not blink. Then a cold hand touched his shoulder. Gabriel screamed. The darkness swallowed his voice. He tried to move, but his body refused to listen. His legs felt like stone. His arms felt weak. He was trapped. The voice whispered again. "Gabriel, you belong to the dead now." Gabriel shook his head. "No. No. Please." His voice was small, shaking with fear. Then a cold wind blew around him. The darkness started to move. It was not just darkness. It was something alive. It wrapped around him like hands pulling him down. Gabriel kicked and screamed. "Help me. Somebody help me." But nobody heard him. The last thing he saw before everything disappeared was the dead body's face, smiling. Then, Gabriel fell. Fell into nothing. Fell into darkness. Fell into the world of the dead. And the door of the living world closed forever. Gabriel's body felt like it was falling, but he could not see where he was going. The air was cold, and the darkness wrapped around him like a thick blanket. He screamed, but his voice did not make a sound. Then, suddenly, thud. Gabriel hit the ground hard. His whole body ached. He tried to stand up, but his legs were weak. He looked around. The place was strange. The sky was red. The trees had no leaves. The ground was dry and cracked, like a place that had never seen rain. There were shadows moving, but there were no people. "Where am I?" Gabriel whispered. Then he heard the voices. Whispers. Laughter. Crying. They were all around him, but he could not see anyone. He turned in circles, looking for a way out, but there was none. Then, something touched his leg. Gabriel jumped back. His heart was beating very fast. He looked down. It was a hand. A human hand, coming out of the ground. The fingers were long and thin, with sharp nails. The skin was dry and black, like it had been dead for many years. Then another hand came out. And another. And another. The ground was breaking, and many hands were coming out, reaching for him. Gabriel screamed. He turned to run, but the hands grabbed his legs. He kicked, but more hands grabbed him. They were pulling him down. Then, the whispering stopped. A deep voice spoke. "Gabriel, this is your new home." Gabriel looked up. The dead body was standing there, smiling. Gabriel struggled with all his strength, but the hands were too many. They pulled him down, deeper into the ground. His body sank into the dry earth. He screamed, but his voice was swallowed by the red sky. "Please. I don't want to die," he cried. The dead body stepped closer. Its empty eye sockets stared at him. Its rotten lips stretched into a wide, evil smile. "You did not respect the dead," it said. "Now, you will join us." Gabriel shook his head. "No. I am sorry. I did not know." The hands pulled him deeper. His waist was already inside the ground. The soil was cold and heavy. His body felt weak. He cried, but nobody came to save him. The dead body bent down and whispered in his ear, "Now, you will never sleep, never rest, never escape. You will feel pain forever." Gabriel let out one last scream as the hands pulled him completely underground. Silence. The red sky became dark. The dead body stood there, staring at the ground. Then, slowly, it turned and walked back into the grave. The earth closed over it. The village remained quiet. The wind started blowing again. The trees moved. The night returned to normal. But Gabriel was gone. Forever. And the next time someone passed by that grave, if they listened closely, they would hear a faint voice whispering in the wind, "Help me." But no one ever did.